Hey there, Teresa here. It is another Money Shift Monday. I'm so excited you're here because today, what I'll be sharing is what I consider to be one of the most powerful, if you want to think of it, abundance muscles that we can work out, that we need to develop and utilize so that we can truly experience health and well being. Not to mention things like joy and fulfillment and peace of mind and freedom. This principle is powerful. That being said, I have to warn you, it may not seem like it's very popular, which is why it's not being talked about very much out there. But it's so important. So let's go there. As you hop on, please say good morning so I can greet you. Please be sure to engage in comments or questions during or after this. If you're watching the replay, same thing, because I will circle back and be sure to respond in some way, shape, or form to whatever comes up for you during this broadcast. So, speaking of an unpopular subject, let's talk about scarcity, which the dictionary defines as a state of being deficient, inadequate, insufficient, lacking. In other words, not enough. Now, like it or not, we all experience scarcity in our lives. It's part of the human condition. It is unavoidable. What is avoidable is what I call unnecessary scarcity. That's the scarcity that's created and perpetuated by this archetype of scarcity that I keep talking about. Now, unnecessary scarcity is what we experience when we have a perception of deficiency or not enough that is inaccurate. Whenever that's the case, we're going to experience scarcity unnecessarily. It's also what we experience when we react to actual scarcity in a disempowered or unhealthy way. And we've all done it, not just with money. So, as you're hopping on, let's start to imagine this scenario. And I can literally almost real live imagine this. Dan and I once were friends. We've lost touch with a woman who was literally a gourmet Italian chef. She had lived in Italy for like 20 years and ran a restaurant. We're talking gourmet. Now, let's imagine that you and I have been invited to a gourmet meal that she's preparing with a bunch of other really neat people. Now, when she fixes a gourmet meal, like everything is gourmet. So we sit down and just the setting and the placemats and the flowers and the arrangements is beautiful. And then there's a glass of wine that's just so good. And then there's appetizers. And like every time you eat something, you're just like, oh my gosh, this is so good. And then she brings out the next course. And let's say the main course is like her amazing lasagna. Amazing. And so you dish up a piece, it's passed around, you dish up a piece for yourself, you take a forkful, you put it in your mouth, and you are like, oh my gosh, this is so good. And with the wine and the salad and the conversation and the people, oh my gosh, you are so enjoying this meal. It is so supporting your joy and fulfillment and well being at many levels, physically, emotionally, spiritually, you name it. Pretty soon the host comes around and says, hey, we got more lasagna. Anybody want another piece? And you're like, that's really good. And actually, I'm still a little hungry, which is what happens sometimes when we're eating slowly over a long period of time. And so I'll have another piece. And you take the other piece and you keep raving, it is so good, this is the best, etc. And the meal continues and you're feeling so content and so like just pleasure and satisfaction, and your body feels great. It's such good food. And then as it's starting to get ready to clear the table for dessert, of course, The host looks at you and said, "You've really loved this lasagna. There's one piece left." You eat it. And you're like, "Really? I really do like it." "Okay." And so you take it and you start eating it. And suddenly you're like, "Oh." Suddenly it's not going down in your tummy so well. Suddenly you're feeling full and actually overfill. You're feeling uncomfortable. Your stomach's starting to hurt. You just experienced unnecessary scarcity. And we've all done it, yes? Because what created the unnecessary scarcity is like there's a built-in limit, like how much our stomachs literally can hold, how much our bodies need. And when we go beyond that and try and pack some more in, we start to feel stress, discomfort, pain, regret, guilt, you name it. Suddenly, the evening, the meal isn't quite as satisfying, as enjoyable. And the same thing is true when it comes to anything, but especially money. See, this abundance muscle that we have to learn to develop is what I call recognizing sufficiency and then honoring it, okay? It's recognizing that, oh, I'm just feeling just right. I haven't eaten too much and I'm not hungry anymore. I'm going to stop. It's recognizing those limitations instead of blowing through them. Now, I will admit that when we're having conversations about abundance, limitation almost seems like a contradiction in terms, okay? But it's not. In truth, limits and learning to recognize and honor them, you know, we see it with children, we see it with eating gourmet meals, and we know it with money. That actually supports our well-being. It supports us to grow and flourish. Any gardener knows this, but that's another episode. So here's the thing that I want to have you get from that metaphor. When the archetype of scarcity is the subconscious like operating system that's running in our lives, with its inaccurate perception of not enough, we will always either overeat or undereat. Always. We'll overeat because there's no such thing as enough in the archetype of scarcity. Whatever we have at some level, conscious or subconscious, we're still going to see it as not enough because that's the way that works. That's what keeps us striving for more and more. And like, oh, just one more piece, just one more piece. Let me see some head nods or, yeah, I've been there, I've done that in the comments here if you can relate to this. When it comes to money, this is what often has people living paycheck to paycheck despite having a great income because they're like, more, more, more. It's often what leads to people having recurring debt. It can be what leads to workaholism, addiction, burnout, people having all sorts of health challenges, sleep deprivation, you name it. And that's just on an individual level. Collectively, it's really a large part of what's having us in many ways destroy our planet. We're not honoring the built-in limits. We're overutilizing the resources of this planet. So how does this archetype of scarcity lead to undereating, you might say? Like, well, this can happen when you think there's not enough, and so you don't want to take from anyone else. I've worked with people who feel guilty, like I don't want to spend or enjoy my money because others don't have as much as I have. So they'll undereat. It can also happen, and this is at a collective level, when everyone else at the table has taken their third and fourth servings and you haven't even gotten your first or haven't finished your first. That's a collective way this shows up. It's also the pattern, under eating, not eating enough, literally. It's also the pattern that makes what's really going on this not honoring or recognizing sufficiency most obvious? As you will literally experience if you watch the series of short videos that are available for free on my website, in the archetype of scarcity, we see everything as not enough, even if we don't realize it. And everything, my friend, includes us. So what happens with money is we often undereat, don't eat as much as we need, because we think we're not enough, like we aren't important or our needs don't matter. Now, we overeat for many of the same reasons, only this time our overeating when it is about trying to make ourselves enough, to make ourselves matter, to try and prove that we are enough. And this really, really shows up in our relationship with money. And I'm here to tell you from firsthand experience, as well as the experience of hundreds and hundreds of people I've worked with over the past 26 years, it doesn't work. It never will work. It doesn't work individually. It doesn't work collectively. It doesn't allow us to experience the well-being, the health, the freedom, the joy, the fulfillment that we are meant to have. And it's why creating a healthy, empowered, and truly abundant relationship with money is not just about the mechanics of money. Oh, here's how much I make, and here's how much I save, and here's how much I spend. It's not just about the money itself. What we need, and what I'm on a mission to offer you, is a new foundation for our relationship with money. That foundation is what I call the sacred archetype of abundance. And in that, abundance is first and foremost an internal experience that arises from an internal, inherent sense of sufficiency and worth that then we can bring to gourmet meals. Yep, that's all I have appetite for. That's all I can eat. And we can bring to our relationship with money. Sufficiency. Knowing how to recognize it and then honoring it. It's like the Goldilocks principle. Not too much, not too little, just right. And then enjoying the just rightness of it, which the archetype of scarcity will never let us do, because whatever we experience as just right, it's going to have us saying, but it's not enough. This is the deeper work. This is the deeper transformation that we must walk ourselves through, be supported to go through when it comes to money. So having said that, what's your next step? Well, first of all, I'm hoping just hearing this, watching this today, has already increased your awareness. So you can start to pay attention to, whoops, nope, I'm going to pass on that third piece of lasagna, okay? That you stop and don't overeat. Like Goldilocks, you learn to find your not too much, not too little, just right point, okay? The second thing being said, you'll never find that point if you're still, without realizing it, caught in the archetype of scarcity, because whatever point you get, then it's not going to be enough. So to learn about that operating system and how it impacts you and your relationship with money, and at the same time to learn about this other operating system that I call the sacred archetype of abundance, is very much your next step. Because if you don't see it, you're going to be trapped in it. And if you don't know you have other options, you're still going to be trapped in it. So I've already put the link to where you can access those videos. They're free. In the description here. I invite you to go check them out. I also invite you to stay tuned here on this page, because I've got an event coming up at the end of March called the Breakthrough to Abundance Invitational, where we're going to go deeper into this, what perpetuates this scarcity, has us not be able to recognize and honor sufficiency. We're going to be diving into that. Stay tuned. We'll be posting about it very soon. Until then, I thank you for being here. Carol and Kathy and Carol, appreciate it. I will come back and answer any questions or comments you have. And I will be back here next week, Monday, same time, same place, offering you another Money Shift.